What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a Jokic mock. Come on, that's what we're looking at here. I've got the one pick in this one, and anybody doing anything else is out of their damned minds. You could do it, but there really wouldn't be a point. Not necessarily because Jokic is the guaranteed number one overall player. More so because if you're going to do a mock draft from the one slot, you just take the guy that you know everybody else is going to take in the one slot. What are we even doing here? I'm Dan Vespris. Thanks as always for hanging out with me here. At Dan Vespris over on social media, DANBESBRIS. I demand that you find me there before the regular season starts. We do way too many things over on Twitter. Realizing that I need to trim my facial hair while live on a YouTube show is pretty much the way that I handle my personal hygiene these days. It certainly isn't getting to look in the mirror at all. That's not how adult life is, ladies and gentlemen. You learn these things. This is a Sports Ethos presentation. Make sure to check out the Sports Ethos draft guide over at sportsethos.com and get yourself Pandas Sleepers freshly into the draft guide today. Pandas Sleepers, Brewski 150 projections for points league and category leagues. You've also got the draft tracker tool that's brand new for this season, and then over 140 other pieces of amazing content. Before we dive into the mock draft, which starts in exactly 2 minutes from right now, I would also ask that you guys please take a moment to click the thumbs up button. He says, showing everybody that he has a toe thumb. I have toe thumb, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure if you guys have noticed that over the years. This thumb, a little weird, fairly normal. This thumb, very weird. Not normal at all. Looks like a toe. Anyway, hit the toes up button down in the bottom right corner there if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on a traditional channel, please take a moment to drop a 5-star review. And if you're not subscribed already, that's actually a pretty big positive for us. Everything sort of begets something else. If you're wondering like why certain shows take off, it's because a lot of people hit thumbs up on them. It's a big deal. It slides into the algorithm and everybody takes off from there. There's the mock. We're still waiting on a few people to sign their butts in. It's actually the 3 teams right behind me. One of those 3 teams, I think, was in the draft before I got there. So that one might be a Joker team. There we go. Now we're down to one more person that I think is from Twitter. I'm not holding out hope for Steve Nebraska there. I think that team was the one that was there before I got in. But in any event, we'll go for a little bit here. I have another pod jumping over on Josh's show at 2:15 my time, so that's about 45 minutes from now. I'm also going to be on, I don't know if you guys know this, but the In This League crew has a basketball guy now. His name is Jesse. I'll be jumping on his pod. I think that's a audio only. That'll be right after the other one. So very busy afternoon for yours truly. Let me turn off draft sound so you guys don't get inundated with that nonsense. My guess is we'll go about 100 picks in this one. I know the two autos. I really thought we'd be down to 1, and then I thought coin flip, maybe that last one turns out to work. But looks like we're missing one team. Maybe a team just forgot to check back to their browser. Ah, well. All right, it's me. I'm taking Jokic. That's an easy one. Now we'll just wait and see what everybody else does behind me. The beauty of Jokic, of course, as I throw on the draft board for those of you watching, the beauty of Jokic is that you can literally do anything you want. You could go full balance, which is my general play when I have the first overall pick. I think that punting is something you should often do if you're at a disadvantage to begin with, which you are by having a pick late in the first round. Having a player like Jokic, who's hyper elite in 3 things, pretty good in 2 others, serviceable in 2 others, and really only a negative in 3s. Okay, fine. You could say, well, I'll go punt 3s, but your center is not the guy you're relying on to get you 3 balls anyway. So you can quite literally do anything you want with Jokic. He gives you a great start in field goal percent. He gives you an amazing start in steals from a center. Massive start in assists, massive start in rebounds. Doesn't score as much as some of the other first rounders. So that's another thing that's maybe on the table. And when I'm in a roto format, oftentimes I will end up sort of semi-punting points when I have a Jokic build. It's just easy because he gives you that firm start in field goal percent. and free throw percent. And then all you really have to do is make sure that the guys that you're getting that, you're targeting in steals or blocks or whatever it is you're trying to add on top aren't going to tank you. And the nice thing is, people are like, oh, you can put threes with Jokic. I actually don't think you really need to, because you can get a 3-point shooter whose field goal percent isn't that great. And Jokic being a positive there of that magnitude, because he was the number one guy in field goal percent weighted impact last year, he'll counterbalance whatever you've got out of your 3-point shooter. Mix in a guy who hits, 2.5, 3 threes without bad percentages, and you're set. You're not punting threes anymore. First round, by the way, goes Jokic, Embiid, Luka, Shea, Halliburton, and Steph is the top 6. The back half of the round goes Jason Tatum at 7, then Dame, Giannis, LaMelo Ball at 10, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker finishes off that first round. I can't help but notice that Anthony Davis is still on the board. I don't even need to flip over to the player page to see that, because he's still not drafted, and we're at pick 16. One would assume that he's coming off the board now. AD X rank at 13, and there he goes at 16. So, that's as far as he's going to drop pretty much. So anyway, back to the Jokic idea here. If you really insisted on punting something, I think the easiest things to punt with Jokic are blocks and points. Those are your two, because you're a big man who's not getting a ton of blocks, meaning you don't need that many other big men to do it. Points, because Jokic is not a big points guy. You could just sort of lean into dudes that do all the other stuff. My preferred move with Jokic is no punt. I just don't think you need to do it. So I know we have a couple of autos here towards my half, the front half of the thing, which makes it a little easier for me to know what players are going to be on the board as it approaches me. I'm going to treat this like a regular draft through about pick 100, so 8th, 9th round, somewhere in that range, and basically just show you guys, hey, here's how you build a Jokic team, and you don't even have to punt. The other nice thing about Jokic, as someone just left and then came back in, is that I don't want to say he's like hyper durable. He was for a long time, but he only played 69 games last year and off a championship run. My guess is Denver will probably try to keep him in that sort of 66 to 71 range again this season. And there they go. The autos zooming off the board. Lots of amazing options for me here. Kawhi's still there. Butler's still there. Harden's still there if you trust he's going to get moved. Cat is still there. I can go Cat and take another big man and Kawhi or Jimmy Butler. I could go Kawhi and Jimmy Butler here. I don't know how I get through this without taking Cat, basically. It feels like he's almost a no-brainer at this point because of the hope that he stays upright. But again, like with Kawhi and Jimmy, you got so many options. I like all three of those guys. You're just guessing at which one's going to be more healthy this year. So which one do I go? Do I go Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler? Well, with Jokic, you're probably better if you're not punting to lean Kawhi because he's a better 3-point guy. Butler gets you the higher assist totals, arguably the better field goal percent, but both guys are great there. Who do I think plays more games? Probably Butler by a little bit. I'm going to go Kawhi. I don't think you can go wrong with any combination of two of those three guys. I'm pretty surprised that Cat was still on the board, actually. But, look at this thing. I got a guy who's probably top 3 in per game in Jokic. I got a guy who's probably top 5 or 6 in per game in Kawhi. And Towns, I believe, is going to be top 20 per game this year. Butler would have been the better per game play. I guess I think Towns stays a little bit more upright. That's like dice roll, coin flip, whatever you want to call it between those guys. I loved all three of them. I love what I got. Let's go back to the draft board and give you guys the second round now, just in case you can't see it all that well on the screen. I'll make it a little bit bigger here. Apologies to the YouTubers. I think there was a slightly larger size I could have used. Second round. Mikal Bridges went 13th, pretty early for him. Kyrie, Trae Young, Anthony Davis, Victor Wembanyama goes the 5th pick of the second round. That's 17. Donovan Mitchell goes 18. Wemby's going to keep going earlier after everybody saw him in the preseason, but let's all remember that the preseason's not the season. I do think that Wembanyama gets off to a really fast start because he's going to have all of his energy. He's not going to be beaten down by the rigors of an NBA season. Teams are not going to have the scouting report on him yet. Early year Wembanyama, I think, is going to be fun. Dog days, I think, probably take a little bit of a toll on him. Anthony Edwards goes 19 here, then Sabonis, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, James Harden, and then I got Cat to finish off the second round. If you're thinking about building a well-balanced team at this point, you're probably out in front of yourself. My scoring might not be terrific. My rebounds are great. My percentages are great. My assists are pretty good. I could use another point guard here at some point. My threes are fine now after a Jokic start because Cat hits a bunch and Kawhi hits a few. Not great, but they're fine. Steals are good. Blocks are not great. Both percentages are excellent. Turnovers are actually relatively low considering coming out of the first 3 rounds with that number. Jokic is kind of high. Towns will be medium. Leonard is oddly low in the turnover department. I think what you're looking for here is probably a point guard when it comes back my way. I don't think you want to let it go too much farther than that without one. Not that assists are a massive issue because starting with 10 a game out of Jokic or thereabouts does make your life super easy. But I just don't think we want to go too much farther down that path without at least getting somebody who's okay. It doesn't have to be another 8, 9 assist guy, but we probably want, because Kawhi was at 4, and Cat will probably be around 4 or 5. So again, it's not a disaster. I have probably about 18 assists per game, 19 assists per game out of my top 3 guys. Anybody that's attacking assists is beating me there, but again, it's not a disaster. I'm back over to the player board. Apologies that I'm not showing the draft board. Let's go back to the draft board for a second. I'll give you the third round. Kawhi, then goes Jimmy Butler right after my pick. No surprise there. Freddie VanVleet, Larry Markkinen, Paul George, and Jalen Brunson. Back half of Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, DeJounte Murray, Cade Cunningham, Bam Adebayo, and LeBron James. That's your third round. Looking back at the players at hand, and I don't want to tip my hand too much, I'm guessing that Darius Garland and De'Aaron Fox will be gone by the time it gets back to me. Those would be your top assist guys that are still hanging out kind of near the upper parts of the board. As you move down the list, DeRozan's probably going to have that like 4 to 6 range, and Levine will probably have 4. So if you wanted to go another route, you can get your assists hanging out on the wing. It doesn't have to be a point guard, and there aren't that many going in this kind of what it ends up being like the 45 to 70 range. Very few actually in there, and then you get to like Chris Paul and Tyus Jones and Marcus Smart and some other guards going in the 70 to 100 bucket. And that might be the pivot here, is to just, again, attack guys that I know are going to be a good fit and worry about filling in some of the stuff later. And, there's a lot of good options here. Porzingis is still on the board, and we're almost at 50. I wasn't intending to take another center early, but I might not have a choice if he's still there. Well, he'll get auto-drafted. So DeMar is a really easy pick here in the late 40s. Zach LaVine is an easy pick here. Vooch is an easy pick here. If I didn't already have 2 centers, that's probably the way I go. I don't think I'm going to have to go farther down the board than those guys. But if I do, I'm not going Jared Allen, although the team does need a little bit of a kick in the tuchus with blocks. He's probably not the guy. Is not a huge blocks dude. I don't think I want to draft based on what I think the team is coming up short in right now. I'd rather deal with that type of stuff later. I know blocks are a problem. Having 2 centers and not having many is not great. And there goes Chet Holmgren. So DeMar is going to be one of my 2 picks. He's a pretty easy call. I know the threes are not great, but everything else is going to be wonderful for him. Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, Zach LaVine, Vooch. All of these guys are perfectly reasonable grabs near 50. In this particular instance, having 2 centers already, I probably lean away from Jared Allen and Vooch and lean more towards Zach LaVine, even Tyrese Maxey if you went a little bit farther down the list, but I think I'd far prefer LaVine to that. So we'll go DeRozan and LaVine. We'll load up on Chicago Bulls. We're strong on the wing. Team continues to get enough assists. DeRozan was 5 last year. I think LaVine was 4. Triple check myself on that. Yeah. So I got another 9 assists out of these 2 guys back to back, just like I did in the second and third round. So now I'm up at about 28-ish assists per game at this point, and that's pretty good. out of my top 5, because typically to win your fantasy league, the number is like 3.5 to 4 range is maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't say that's to win it. 4 low 4s wins it. And I'm at almost 6, 5.5, 6 assists per game played slot. So I'm still way over the mark there. My team's problem right now very much is blocks. I'm pretty much going to have to take a blocks guy if I'm not punting them. And I told you guys I was going to do a level build here. So I'm going to stick to my word. If this was a head-to-head league, if I was treating this like a head-to-head league, I would probably just punt blocks right now. But I'm treating it like, can I build a balanced team? And blocks are very much, and threes, oddly enough, sort of a weird pairing of things to be extraordinarily weak at, but it's also the things that Jokic is kind of weak at, and I never really covered up those issues. But my team has 2 good rebounders. I have plenty of steals out of these guys. Scoring is very good. After 4th and 5th rounds, I managed to continue to pile up guys that put in points. I've covered up threes a little bit with Towns and Levine, but those 2 guys, and like sort of half Kawhi, but having DeMar and Jokic in these first 5 is going to keep my team kind of below mid pack in that category. So threes is something I'm going to have to deal with, but I think we can do that later. Blocks is something I'm going to have to deal with, and we're probably going to have to do that sooner, just because once you pass pick 100, there just aren't guys left that you want on a balanced team. 4th round, by the way, I can give you 2 rounds in a row now. We'll speed read our way through it. Evan Mobley, Jaylen Brown, Darius Garland, De'Aaron Fox, Jamal Murray, and Drew Holiday. That was picks 37 through 42. 43 to 48 is Jordan Poole, Kristaps Porzingis, Scotty Barnes, DeAndre Ayton, Chet Holmgren, and then my DeMar DeRozan. 49 through 54, as we embark upon the 5th round, Zach LaVine, Nick Claxton, Jared Allen, OG Anunoby, Walker Kessler, and Julius Randle. Goes a little early in this one. And the back half of the 5th round through pick 60, Vooch, Zion, Brandon Ingram, Devin Vassell, Tyrese Maxey, and Alperen Şengün. So now we're rolling into the 6th round. So pick 61 is on the clock right now. And I have to start to look at guys that can fill one of the voids or both of the voids on my team. Those guys that are still about are Rudy Gobert for blocked shots, Brook Lopez for blocked shots if I don't want to tank my free throw percent. Clint Capella is a shot blocking guy that might be on the board when it comes back to me. If I needed to go deeper down the page, you could go Time Lord because he's not going to take many free throws. Mark Williams and Jalen Duren. I don't think those guys are going to be that big of shot blockers. Once you get past those dudes, you got Mitch Robb and you've got Daniel Gafford, who I think is going to end up getting center eligibility. And then that's kind of the end of it. So I think one of the 2 picks here is going to have to be blocks in some capacity. And the other one is probably going to have to be threes. The 3-point shooters here are Cam Johnson, who's probably going to be gone by the time it gets me. Tyler Hero, who's probably going to be gone by the time it gets to me. Jeremy Grant is actually not a bad 3-point shooter, who also does some kind of across-the-board stuff and gets you about a block a ball game. So there's a little bit of an allure on the Jeremy Grant side. So we'll throw him on our queue as well. Not as much as I love Chris Paul, I don't think we need what he's doing here if we're not punting points. The assists are still in perfectly good shape. I don't trust Rozier or Jalen Green. Tyus Jones would be someone I would look at as well if we were still hunting assists and steals, but I don't think we are. Kind of the same story with Marcus Smart. Venturing farther down the board, I don't think that we really want to go this far yet, but Klay Thompson would be a nice 3-point mega specialist. And do we roll the dice and hope that he gets back at pick 96? Probably doesn't. That's the dilemma I'm at right now. So I put a number of names in my queue. We're 4 picks away. I have 5 names in the queue, so I know at least one of those guys is going to get to me. I think my team is pretty damn balanced aside from those 2 deals. There go the auto picks. So there go my 2 3-point shooters. And now we'll see what the team in front of me is doing. I'm going to get somebody on my board. Now we wait. I hate to blow up my free throw number because I think my team wins free throws right now. Be nice to get 12 roto points there or just be very consistent in it on the head-to-head side. Having nice rebound numbers and good free throw percent is pretty coveted. So I'll probably go Brook Lopez with at least one of my plays here. I likely then don't want Capella because I know the blocks will be nice, but I really don't want to mess up my other stuff. I have plenty of field goal percent because all of my wings can shoot. My big guys, good there. So go Jeremy Grant, a little lower in field goal percent, but gets threes and blocks and scores. And again, I continue to cover up any issue I might have had with scoring, starting with Jokic, and then I don't think you get too much out of Brook Lopez. So this is a pretty dominant team in my eyes. I know people are going to look at it and say that there's a little bit of an age issue there. I mean, yeah, and Jeremy Grant is a shutdown risk, but I'm going to assume that any of you guys that are playing head-to-head know that you need to end your league 3 weeks early. Let's get rid of that issue. Kawhi's the injury. This is sort of like a, does he finally get healthy again sort of deal? We lost one more team, which is a shame. And like I said, I really think I'm only going to about pick 100, so I'll probably do my 8th and 9th rounds, and then we'll just sort of see who comes off the board after that. But once you get to what I would be there, let's see, that'd be my pick, 120. There's not going to be much left at that point. Head-to-head, you're starting to take some pretty big shots. You know, Yahoo, you got a 13-team roster, your 10th pick. You hope that that player can survive, but like 11, 12, 13, you're going to be rotating a lot of those guys throughout the year. Sometimes you can find somebody at pick 120. I think maybe the issue there, and I want to do a quick promo in the middle of this thing, but I don't want to lose this train of thought, is that the ADPs on guys are not going to accurately reflect where they go in your more competitive draft. So someone with an ADP of 120 could still have some really nice value. The guy that actually goes at 120 in your draft is probably not going to be the guy with the ADP of 120. It's probably going to be some other wank that's deeper down the board. Quick break in the mock draft to remind you guys to find me on Twitter at DANBESBRIS. And please, many of you are watching this one live, and I know many of you are going to watch or listen after the fact. Please go hit that thumbs up button. Like, subscribe, rate, review, that whole deal. It does actually mean a lot. Plus, there's one dude out there who's trolling us, and he's putting 1 thumbs down on every single video we do. I think I know who it is. Cool dude. Overwhelm him with your like button pushing, because everybody's got an agenda. And my agenda is to try to get you guys to hit the like button. Doodly doodly doo. All right, back to the mock draft. Still have some time coming before my next pick. I'll throw the board up there and we'll catch up on the round we hadn't read off yet. 6th round, Bradley Beal, Jalen Williams, Jakob Poeltl went very early in this one, and he's good. So Anthony Simons, Franz Wagner, and Rudy Gobert. That was the 61 through 66. Then it goes Paolo Banchero, Josh Giddey, Cam Johnson, Tyler Hero, Chris Paul, and Brook Lopez. That gets us through to pick number 72. Waiting on pick 84. There it goes. So now we can actually get you the 7th round as well. I started it with Jeremy Grant. Then it goes Markelle Fultz, Clint Capella, Terry Rozier, Michael Porter Jr., and Mark Williams. Tyus Jones starts the back half of it. Klay Thompson, Jalen Green, Kyle Kuzma, Jalen Duren, and Tobias Harris. One of the teams that's been auto-drafting for the first 7 rounds actually just signed in. What are the odds of that? Low, by the way, are the odds of that. Low. Well, we're down to only 1 auto-drafting team. A little late for that, I guess. Well. Shout out, as always, to our pals at manscaped.com. Use promo code ETHOS20 to get 20% off your order and free shipping at manscaped.com. So again, I think at the end of this one, I'll give my picks at 96, 97. We'll leave the draft board up there so you can kind of see what's happening, but I'll likely auto pick after that. And the reason for that is, well, maybe I'll throw my hat in the ring, but I feel like because I know we're only down to 1 auto picking team now, but we had autos for 2 teams for 7 rounds, which basically means that guys that are normally getting passed over and thinning out the board for guys that we actually want to target, that didn't happen early. Plus, I got to rest my voice for a second before my 2 podcast hits coming up almost immediately after this. All right, I'm coming up here. I don't think our team has any glaring issues. Threes could use a little bit of a bump. So Buddy Hield is a possibility. Not really somebody that I'm generally targeting because I think his role shrinks in Indiana this season, but he probably beats mid 90s on a per game basis. John Collins is an interesting flyer type guy at this juncture. Oh, now we're zooming through. CJ McCollum is struggles, and the percentages have been a big part of it. My team's percentages are so damn good that maybe it doesn't matter. Andrew Wiggins is also a weird free throw guy. I don't have any downer free throw dudes on my team, so he could get tossed into the mix. I don't actually have a point guard eligible player on my team right now, so that might be something to consider as well. Not that there are all that many left at this point, but someone like a DeAnthony Melton, he always fits our build. He'll shore up a steals issue if that starts to creep in at all. And again, there's just a lot of options here. And Melton hits threes also. Even if Yahoo doesn't think he's going to hit that many, he makes a decent amount. I don't think that you'd have to go much farther than that at this point. There's plenty of nice flyer type options at 96 available. Ones I like, Wiggins, I think will have an okay year. There goes Scoot. I think D'Lo than people realize this season. Do I want to take him here? Not that badly. I like Gafford. I like Zach Collins, Trey Murphy, if you could squat on him. Melton, I like a lot. We'll put Melton in the queue here, so that'll buy us some time to keep talking. And the other one, I mean, you probably just go for the guy you think is going to have a really nice season. And again, head-to-head versus Roto. If this was Roto, I'd probably go Mitch Robinson because I think he just smashes this 97 per game. If it's head-to-head, you're probably not trying to blow up something that you're very strong in right now. So maybe you go Zach Collins instead. There's just so many options here. I don't know that you can go all that wrong with it. Let's go John Collins. Why not? Why not? All of these guys are upside plays, though. Mitch Rob's an upside play. Wiggins is an upside play. Hield is an upside play. Gafford's an upside play. You got all these guys that are super interesting. So the draft board back up there. I'll read off the... What did we get? We got to as far as Tobias Harris, right? So 8th round, Chris Middleton, Austin Reeves, Onyeka Okongwu, Marcus Smart, John Morant, and Derek White. Then Wendell Carter Jr., Draymond Green, Robert Williams, CJ McCollum, Scoot Henderson, and DeAnthony Melton. I'm just going to leave the board up for those that want to watch. If you're listening after the fact, you can probably just navigate over and to the YouTube page and zip to the end so you can see the board in all of its magical glory. But I don't think that we need to go all that much farther because mocks are very wrong at this point because we've got 2 auto pick teams again. They're going to take the guys at the top. It's going to leave dudes that we want to target on the board longer. Basically, I just wanted to give you guys an exercise in building a pretty well-rounded team, which I do think this one is. There are a couple of small weaknesses, but like considering how many strengths there are, this team would crush in Roto. I think this team would actually do pretty damn well in head-to-head. There are a couple of spots where I would have leaned harder into strengths and just started punting certain things, like could have punted threes after DeRozan, could have punted blocks after Levine, but we also found it not that challenging to cover up some of those weaknesses. So that's kind of why I leaned in that direction. Again, I'll leave the board up here while we throw on, we'll turn auto draft on. At this point, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Again, please hit that like button. Let's see if there's anything going on over here in the chat room. David says, someone in my league drafted Wemby at 16 in Roto. That has to be a reach, right? Yeah, that is a reach. Having a couple of big preseason games. I mean, he's going to have some really absurd fantasy lines mixed in this year. But these like running, leaning, fading, whatever jumpers, Pop's not going to be okay with that in the regular season, the way that he is in the preseason. He's going to want Wembanyama to learn the team game here. Where the folks on his club are excellent and can help him get better shots. And hopefully over the course of the year, everybody will kind of work together to figure that out. I just think you're going to see this big energy surge from him right at the beginning. And then he's going to peter out for a while when the season gets to be long. Towards the end, when you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel there. Chris says, I got the 1 pick when I drafted my first real team and thought about Embiid for a split second. Wemby went 25th. Well, that would be you, wouldn't it, Chris? If you got the 1 pick. Oh, I guess maybe it wasn't a 12-teamer. If it was a 12-teamer, that would be you. Yeah, I mean, he's going to go keep he might start going in the teens regularly after these preseason games. Ruben says, hit the like button. Yeah, Rubens is right. David says, what happened to Boggs and Welsh for ITL? They're still there. They just don't do basketball. Scott Bogman and Chris Welsh, they handle baseball and football and a billion other things and are just like beyond inundated with sports. So they brought in a basketball dude named Jesse, and I'm going to be doing a show with him later. That'll be on his feed. I presume that'll be over on the ITL feed, and that is audio only. Chris says, I did not punt threes with them, talking about Nikola Jokic. Yeah, you don't have to punt anything with Jokic. That's the beauty of it. Hey, Dan, which rebound, block, and field goal percent big would you take around the 80 to 100 range? So that is the guys I presume you're talking about, basically like Wendell Carter Jr., Draymond Green, Onyeka Okongwu, Zach Collins, Daniel Gafford, Mark Williams, Mitchell Robinson are probably the 7 that fall somewhere in that range. I don't know if Clint Capella is also part of that group. If he is, Capella is probably my top choice because we've seen he's just done it for a long time. So we kind of know what he does. He only needs like 25, 26 minutes to be a decent fantasy value. Behind him, Robert Williams is on that list as well. I actually think Mitchell Robinson is wildly undervalued. I think Mark Williams is up kind of near the top of that. Oh, and then Jalen Duren is in there too. I like a lot of those guys. Robinson, your fear is injury stuff. Nurk, your fear, if you want to throw him in there, is just does he have enough to do on that team? And is he in shape? And can he stay? There's like a lot of question marks with Nurk. He's probably my least favorite of that bunch. Okongwu, you're hoping for a few extra minutes. Wendell Carter Jr., hoping for any kind of defensive stat, but that's not really his jam. So Capella, Mark Williams, Duren, Mitchell Robinson, those are probably the ones that I'd go over the others. But like, there's really only 1 or 2 that I don't like from that list. I think you've got a pretty good selection if you want. I think that might be the end of the questions. And so I think that might be the end of the show. I'm not going to let the mock draft go all the way to the end. I'll post some of the results on Twitter if you're super curious. Again, that's at Dan Besbris over there. But I don't really care about these last few rounds in a mock where a few teams are auto drafting. It's not accurate anymore, and it's not helpful if it's not accurate. But the first 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds, those I think were interesting for us, an opportunity to try to build a well-rounded team around Jokic, and I think we did that. All right, on to some guest spots. Again, hit like on your way out. I'm Dan Besbris, back tomorrow with what should be a big day. Pretty sure tomorrow we are going to do our much anticipated Sleepers show here on YouTube and the Fantasy NBA Today channel. Have a great one, everybody. I'll see you on social.